Hey guys, I'm the Strongman Historian and today we are gonna talk about the 90s. So this video will be a start of a new series I'm planning on doing. Basically, I will be looking at every single year in Strongman and I'll try to, as objectively as possible, decide who were the best guys in the world at the time. So, okay, how is this going to work? There won't be a set number of guys each year. Why is that? Well, some years are just more competitive than others. Sometimes there's a clear top 3, sometimes there's 7 guys who are in the argument. So I will be looking at guys that are clearly above the rest. And yeah, some years it's 3 guys, some years it's 5, 7, 6, whatever. So let's start with 1990.
Looking at the field this year, who's the biggest threat to you?
The biggest one is Odie Wilson. He's a mighty big man.
And does he pose the biggest threat as well?
You just have to wait and see.
So who was the best strongman in 1990? Well, this might be a bit controversial, but it is Jon Pall Sigmarsson. I know, everyone is going to comment, oh, it was Odie was robbed, Odie was the 1990 World's Strongest Man winner. I agree, I think he was robbed, but even though Odie was clearly the better man at the 1990 Worlds, Jon Pall was better overall. He didn't only win World's Strongest Man, he also won the Muscle Power, where he beat Odie. He beat Kazmaier, he beat Magnusson, he beat Jamie Reeves, and the list goes on. He also came second at the Battle of the Giants, beating Kazmaier, beating the 1989 World's Strongest Man winner Jamie Reeves. He was still Jon Pall Sigmarsson.
I feel I'm not taking anything away from Samuelsson, but I feel within myself, that when it comes down to pure strength, I am the strongest man on this planet.
And it's 1990, so the second guy just has to be Odie. He would have won World's Strongest Man if it wasn't for that very controversial last event. He also did Icelandic Heist competition, where he did lose to Bill Kazmaier, but he still beat Magnusson and Jamie Reeves and Hjalti Arnason. Hjalti Arnason was a beast back then. Don't sleep on him.
Yeah, I've been in the game a long time. Some people retired me a couple of times already. I may be a little bit older, but I'm not dead. I'm back. I'm here. I'm still competing and enjoying it a lot.
And I've already mentioned him a couple of times, but William Kazmaier was still one of the best in the world even when he was going on 37 years old. There is a reason why people think Kaz would have won like 6 World's Strongest Men straight, because, to be honest, he actually might have. So, what did Kaz do in 1990? Well, he won the Heist competition I mentioned, he beat Odie, Maggie, Jamie, he came 4th at Muscle Power, and there was something brewing in Iceland for a couple of years. And well, there is a reason why I will be talking about this guy pretty much the whole video, and it's Magnus versus Magnusson. He came 3rd at the Heist, 4th at Muscle Power, and 3rd once again at the World Strongman Challenge. And as we go into 1991, he was the best in the world. He won the 1991 Heist, beating Riku Kiri, another name that will be mentioned in this video a lot. Magnus did come 3rd at the 91 Muscle Power to Jon Pall and Jamie. He beat Odie, Gary and fellow Icelander Arnason in the World Viking Challenge. He finally got his shot to carry the Icelandic torch at World's Strongest Man instead of Jon Pall, and carry it he did. He won the whole thing in the first appearance, and it wasn't even that close.
That guy's a Superman or something, man. I don't know what the Icelanders be eating, but I need to go over there and try some of it, you know what I'm saying?
So, who was the second best in 91? I have to give it to Jamie Reeves. He tied for 2nd with Riku Kiri at Heist behind Magnusson. He finished in an Icelandic sandwich at the Muscle Power between the winner Sigmarsson and Magnusson. He once again finished 3rd behind the winning tie of Forbes Cowan and Gary Taylor at Europe's Strongest Man. At European Hercules, he finished in a tie on points with Sigmarsson behind the Finn Kiri. Even though he was no longer the best in Iceland, Sigmarsson was still elite, and I believe he was the 3rd best guy in 1991. He won the Muscle Power, where he beat both Reeves and Magnusson, as well as Odie Wilson and Gerrit Taylor. And we have to talk about Gerrit Taylor. He exploded on the scene in '91. It was a sign of things to come. He was bested by Sigmarsson, Reeves and Magnusson at the Muscle Power, but he tied for the win with Forbes Cowan at Europe, as I already mentioned, and he also finished just behind Magnus at the World Viking Challenge. Despite a terrible start in the first day at World's Strongest Man, he managed to fight back and finish third when the dust settled. Two guys I just have to mention are the great Finn Riku Kiri and the Dane Henning Thorsen. Kiri finished just behind Magnus at Heist and won the European Hercules. Thorsen, despite not finishing on a podium before Worlds, he peaked when it mattered and he took silver at Worlds. The 1992 season was a bit bittersweet for Magnusson, as he failed to win the World's Strongest Man as the reigning champion in his home country of Iceland. He only finished second. Despite that, he was still the number one in my opinion. Maggie took second at the European Hercules behind the winner Kiri and third at World Mighty Men.
Unfortunately injured, Jon Pall Sigmarsson with Gerrit Taylor, and looking forward to seeing Jamie Reeves in action.
Amongst the competitors, there's only one man who has kicked my butt while I was fit. It's Jamie Reeves. So he must be the favorite.
Jamie Reeves was once again at the top, winning the World Mighty Men, and the first time since his win in 1989, he returned to the World's Strongest Man podium, as he was the one who tied with Magnus for second. After Magnusson made a mistake and dropped the Husafell at the last event of the 1992 Worlds, there was a chance for the 7-foot giant from Holland, Ted van der Parre, to win the World's Strongest Man title. And he took the chance. He would rather die than to drop the stone before Magnusson's mark, and he became the first and only World's Strongest Man winner from Holland. At the end, finishing just 1 point ahead of Magnusson and Reeves.
Magnus Ver útnefndur hér með heiðursvíkingur við góðorði. Heiðir Magnus Ver!
In 1993, I once again have to give the edge to the Icelander Magnus Ver Magnusson. He won the 1993 Viking Challenge, where he faced Riku Kiri, Manfred Höberl, Jamie Reeves and Hjalti Arnason. He also tied for third with Jamie at Europe's Strongest Man. The charismatic South African Gerrit Badenhorst beat Maggie with the home court advantage at the World Mighty Men, but Magnus still managed to beat Jamie and Gerrit Taylor. At the World Strongman Challenge in South Africa, he once again finished second behind Gerrit Badenhorst. Jamie Reeves, Gerrit Taylor, Manfred Höberl and Berend Wennerberg rounded out the top 6. Disappointment came once again at World's Strongest Man, and Magnus finished second behind the Welshman Gerrit Taylor.
Magnus, the end of another World's Strongest Man, second last year, second this year. It was very, very close in the end.
That's how it should be. It should come down to the final event, like it did.
He was very close to capturing both the World's Strongest Man and the Europe's Strongest Man title in the same year, but Manfred Höberl finished ahead of him at Europe's by just 1 point. Talking about Manfred, apart from his Europe's Strongest Man win, he also won the Muscle Power and podium at the European Hercules. He also had a chance at finishing at the podium of World's Strongest Man, but he finished 4th. And who kept him off the podium, you ask? The great Finn Riku Kiri. Not only at World's Strongest Man, but he also kept him off the podium at the World Viking Challenge. Riku also added a 4th European Hercules title to his name this year. Gerrit Badenhorst was in a good spot after 3 events at Worlds, but an injury in the pole push forced him to withdraw from the competition. Winning World Mighty Men and the World Strongman Challenge should give you an idea what was possible for him without an injury.
Hi, my name's Jamie Reeves. I'm from Sheffield in England. Steel City. I weigh 150 kilos, I'm 1m92 and I've come here to kick everybody's ass. You better believe it.
Jamie Reeves was still Jamie Reeves and he took 3 podiums in 1993. 1994 was the year of the Austrian Manfred Höberl, as he was close to unstoppable. What were his placings in 94? He was second, first, second, first, second and first. He missed out on the big one by just 1 point. He repeated his win at Muscle Power from 93, he did the same at the European Muscle Power, he won the Strongest Man on Earth, and without a doubt, he was the best strongman on the planet that year. The only time that year Manfred was beaten was by an Icelander. That Icelander won the European Hercules, beating Manfred. He won the World Strongman Challenge, once again beating Manfred. So, the Icelander was Maggie, right? No, it was Andres Gudmundsson. He had an absolutely incredible year, also finishing second behind Manfred at European Muscle Power and Strongest Man on Earth. He was the best Icelander that year. So, what about Magnus? Well, there was one competition left where Manfred came short, and that was the 1994 World's Strongest Man. Even though he won World's Strongest Man and came second at Muscle Power, he wasn't the best in the world, he wasn't even the best Icelander. Crazy. Riku Kiri was still one of the best in the world, as he came only 1.5 points behind Manfred and 2.5 points behind Maggie at Worlds, finishing in 3rd place. What about Gerrit Taylor? Despite him being the reigning World's Strongest Man, he failed to make the World's Strongest Man final in the newly introduced heat.
Forbes, congratulations, not only are you through to World's Strongest Man, but you've won 2 events and you've beaten the world champion. Tinged with sadness perhaps, because I know you know Gerrit Taylor very well, but you must be delighted.
Oh, I'm very delighted I went through. As I said earlier, Gary's a great athlete. He made a bad mistake, an arm over arm, and he paid for it.
But being beaten by Forbes Cowan in 1994 is no shame. Forbes was 4th 3 times throughout the year, finishing behind the best guys in the world, and he also came 5th in the 94 World's Strongest Man final. Did Manfred continue to dominate in 1995? Well, this is probably the biggest what if in the history of the sport, as Manfred was in a severe car crash and spent many months in a hospital. He lost over 90 pounds and we would never see him compete again. Even though Manfred didn't compete, he organized the competition called Manfred Höberl Classic and Magnus won it, with Gerrit Taylor and Heinz Olesch just behind. Heinz Olesch would tie with Magnus for 1st at the Strongest Man on Earth. Magnus finished 3rd behind the 2 Finns Kiri and Ahola at Europe's, but Magnus won the Muscle Power and World's Strongest Man, proving he is still the man to beat. Gerrit Taylor was on a monstrous run in 1995 as he was trying to recapture his glory. He finished 2nd at the Britain's Strongest Man, he won the Lithuanian IFSA Grand Prix, he took 2nd at Manfred Classic just behind Magnus Werner, he was 3rd at Strongest Man on Earth, he finished on the podium in the World Strength Championships and Muscle Power, but at the biggest combo of the year at World Strongest Man he only came 6th, despite going into the last event in 3rd place. The German Heinz Olesch was an absolute beast in 95. As I already mentioned, he tied for 1st at the Strongest Man on Earth, he won the World's Strongest Viking, he took 3rd at Manfred Classic and 4th at Europe's Strongest Man. At the World Strongman Challenge he was bested by just 2 men, Jouko Ahola and Flemming Rasmussen. At the 95 World Strongest Man, Heinz took a comfortable 4th place. Gerrit Badenhorst took 2nd at the World Strongest Man final once again, proving he's one of the best. Jouko Ahola won the European Hercules comp as well as the World Strongman Challenge. He was taking names at the Europes, beating Magnusson, Olesch, Taylor and Reeves, and would have won if Riku Kiri wasn't present. This was a sign for everyone that the new king is approaching. In 1996, Magnus was once again the best in the world, but Riku Kiri gave him a run for his money. Magnus won his 4th World Strongest Man title, with Kiri and Badenhorst rounding out the podium. He came 3rd at Europe's Strongest Man behind Riku and Heinz. Both Riku and Heinz also beat him at the IFSA Lithuanian Grand Prix. At the World's Strongest Viking, he lost his title to Flemming Rasmussen due to countback. Korfi Olafsson, the Icelandic number 2, came 3rd at the World's Strongest Viking, ahead of Ahola, Oles and Forbes Cowan. Even though Riku Kiri beat Maggie at the Europe's Strongest Man, winning the title and the Lithuanian GP, he didn't perform when it mattered the most and was the runner-up at World's Strongest Man. Gerrit Badenhorst was 3rd at World's Strongest Man once again. The only reason he isn't higher every year is because he competed less than the other guys, but you best believe he was more than capable of beating them. Flemming Rasmussen came 4th at Worlds, and as I said before, he beat Magnus at the World's Strongest Viking. Heist didn't make it through a tough group to the World's Strongest Man final, but he was in a Kiri Magnusson sandwich at the Europe's Strongest Man and the Lithuanian Grand Prix. He was still just as much of a beast as he was in '95. And as I said, a new king is approaching. Jouko Ahola repeated his win at the European Hercules from the previous year. He was 4th at Europe's and the Strongest Viking. Who was the best in '97, you ask? Good question. I would have to go with Riku Kiri. Riku Kiri, but he didn't even make the World's Strongest Man final, how can he be the best? Hear me out. He won the 1997 European Open, beating Badenhorst and Magnus Samuelsson. He came 2nd to Flemming Rasmussen at the World's Strongest Viking. He easily won the Europe's Strongest Man, beating Magnusson as well as Magnus Samuelsson and Flemming Rasmussen, who would end up on the World's Strongest Man podium that year. Yes, he didn't make the World's Strongest Man final, which is a huge knock on him, of course it is. But he tied on points in his group and didn't make it through to the final because of countback. I know we are talking hypotheticals, but if he made the final, you best believe he would be in the fight for the podium. Okay. So what about the second guy? Did he make the World's Strongest Man final? Well, no. Just like Riku, Magnus Samuelsson also didn't make the final.
What about Magnus?
What can I say? It's just, you know, it wasn't my day, at least. Not now. But I'm not finished yet.
Once again, hear me out. He beat Jouko Ahola, the eventual World's Strongest Man winner from '97, at the European Hercules, winning the competition. He came 3rd behind Riku and Badenhorst at the European Open. Maggie was 3rd at the IFSA Lithuanian Grand Prix, was a runner-up at the '97 Europe's Strongest Man, and won the World Strongman Challenge. So despite him missing out on the World Strongest Man final, by just 1 point mind you, he was still a killer. Jouko finally did it. He won the first World Strongest Man title for Finland, despite Riku's best efforts. The reason why Jouko isn't higher is he just competed less than the guys above him. But don't worry, spoiler alert, this will change in '98.
I made a couple of mistakes and that was Jouko's chance and he took it.
Flemming Rasmussen beat both Riku and Magnus at the World's Strongest Viking and took the runner-up spot at the World's Strongest Man. But his lackluster 6th place finish at Europe's Strongest Man kept him from climbing higher.
Magnus Samuelsson is definitely one of the best in the world at the moment.
And Magnus Samuelsson finally makes his first appearance as the '97 Sweden Strongest Man, as the 5th place finisher at Europe's Strongest Man at the World Strongest Man Challenge, and a podium finisher at World's Strongest Man. In 1998, there was no man better than Jouko Ahola. He won the '98 Muscle Power, he won the IFSA Helsinki Grand Prix, beating Magnus Samuelsson, Sven Karlsson and Magnus Samuelsson. At the IFSA German Grand Prix, he finished just half a point behind Riku Kiri, but he managed to beat some names you might have heard in this video: Heinz Oles, Flemming Rasmussen and Magnus Samuelsson. He also won the Strongest Man Alive, but he failed to defend his World Strongest Man title from last year, losing to Magnus Samuelsson.
You are no longer the world's strongest man. What are your thoughts on what's happened over the last few days?
I can't say anything else, but Magnus was better this time, and next year I'll be back and I try to do my best.
Talking about Magnus Samuelsson, as I said, he won the '98 World Strongest Man in Morocco, He won the Atlantic Giant ahead of Kiri and Carlsen. He beat Mark Filippi and Jamie Reeves, yes, Jamie was still going, to win the World Strongman Challenge. He finished 4th and 5th at the IFSA Grand Prix that year, but the man was a winner. He was the world's strongest man after all. And the 6th year in a row, I just have to mention Riku Kiri. As I already mentioned, he came 2nd at the Atlantic Giant behind Samuelsson. He was forced to withdraw from the IFSA Helsinki Grand Prix due to injury, but he came back with a vengeance, winning the IFSA Hungarian Grand Prix ahead of Rasmussen, Pekete and Oles. At the German Grand Prix, he beat them all. Ahola, Oles, Rasmussen, Samuelsson. Riku was in 2nd place going into the car flip in the World's Strongest Man finals, but unfortunately, as luck would always have it with Riku, he injured his hamstring during the event and had to withdraw. Another athlete that had to withdraw on the same event was the American Mark Filippi, who suffered quite the gruesome injury. But he was a beast in '98. He came 3rd at the Muscle Power, 4th at the Atlantic Giant. He placed just behind the winner Magnus Samuelsson at the World Strongman Challenge. He won the Beauty and the Beast and came 6th at the German Grand Prix behind Kiri, Ahola, Oles, Rasmussen and Samuelsson. Flemming Rasmussen didn't do well at the Atlantic Giant, only finishing 7th, but he was 2nd in Hungary and 4th in the German Grand Prix. At the '98 World's Strongest Man, he comfortably won his group, but was unfortunately unable to start in the final due to sickness. He also broke the world log lift record. And now, as we are nearing to the end of the millennium, the question is simple. Who was the best in 1999? The answer is just as simple. It was Jouko Ahola. He won the Finnish Grand Prix, he won the Atlantic Giant, he won the Beauty and the Beast, he came 2nd at the Hungarian, Czech and the Holland Grand Prix behind Bernd Wennerberg, Magnus Samuelsson and Gerrit Badenhorst. He won the 1999 World's Strongest Man, 7 points ahead of the rising star from Finland, Jani Virtanen. Magnus Samuelsson was still Jouko's biggest rival. He finished just behind him at the Beauty and the Beast. He finished 3rd at the Atlantic Giant behind Jouko and Regin Vagadal. Leading into World's Strongest Man, he won the Sweden Strongest Man and he beat Jouko at the Czech IFSA Grand Prix. But his efforts at World's Strongest Man were only good for a 5th place finish. At the end of the year, he finished 2nd behind Hugo Girard at the Viking of the North show in Iceland. Hugo Girard was the reigning Canada Strongest Man in 1999. He won the 99 Muscle Power. As I already mentioned, he beat Magnus Samuelsson at the Icelandic show. However, when it came to World's Strongest Man, Hugo only came 4th, with a similar result of 5th at the Beauty and the Beast. The rising star from Finland, Jani Virtanen, apart from his 2nd place finish at the World's Strongest Man, also came 3rd at the IFSA Helsinki Grand Prix, beating Magnus Samuelsson, Heinz Oles and Phil Pfister. He also took 3rd at the Viking of the North competition, behind Hugo Girard and Magnus Samuelsson. Flemming Rasmussen was dominating the APSA competitions, winning 3 of them, with some of his victims being Riku Kiri, Heinz Oles and Magnus Magnusson.
And I expect it's going to be a really tough guy to keep Riku behind me. That's the only thing I'm going to worry about, is keep Riku behind me today.
Riku Kiri was still elite, but at 36 years old he couldn't rival Goofy Rasmussen for 1st, being beaten by him into 2nd 3 times. And the last guy I'm gonna mention as the 90s come to a close is the strongest man from the Netherlands, Bernd Wennerberg. He came 4th at the Beauty and the Beast in Hawaii, he beat Jouko in IFSA Comp in Hungary, he came 3rd in the IFSA Holland, and managed a respectable 6th place at the World's Strongest Man that year. So, that's it for the decade of the 90s. But I will still give you some names that I think were really good. So let's go. Mark Higgins, Raymond Bergmanis, Sven Carlsen, Joe Onosai, Wayne Price, Torfi Olafsson and Wout Zylstra. So, let me know if you like this video, let me know in the comments which decade I should tackle next. So, I'm the Strongman Historian, thank you guys for watching, bye.